Cervantes, known as El Mencho, was the head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most powerful drug organizations on the planet. But while other kingpins like El Chapo were flashing their wealth in cities, El Mencho was playing a completely different game that kept him free and alive for decades. The DEA estimated his personal fortune at over...
This one is about a big cartel leader in Mexico, man, who really learned how to keep it on the low.
$500 million, possibly reaching $1 billion. But here's what really went down. This man chose to live in mountain hideouts while owning luxury resorts that Hollywood stars like Sandra Bullock and Julia Roberts used to visit. We're talking about a dude who could buy anything, but chose to own everything and live like he had nothing. To understand how the most wanted man in Mexico built and hid a billionaire lifestyle that made other drug lords look like amateurs, we gotta go back to how he completely flipped the whole kingpin playbook and created a strategy that law enforcement had never seen before. Let's rewind to when El Mencho was building his empire in the early 2000s. Back then, the drug game was all about showing off. Gold chains, fancy cars, living it up in the cities, making sure everyone knew you had money.
The good old days.
Kingpins were competing to see who could be more flashy, more obvious, more in your face with their wealth. But this dude had military training from his time in the Mexican army, and he understood something other kingpins didn't. The flashier you are, the faster you fall. While guys like El Chapo were making headlines with their dramatic escapes and public displays of wealth, El Mencho was studying their mistakes and building something way more sophisticated. El Mencho watched as cartel after cartel got taken down because their leaders couldn't resist the spotlight. He saw how the Arellano Felix brothers in Tijuana got caught up in their own hype, how the Gulf cartel leaders kept getting arrested because they lived too publicly. This man was taking notes while everyone else was taking risks. While El Chapo was out here taking over restaurants, paying everyone's bills, and making a scene in Culiacan, El Mencho was quietly building something way bigger. We're talking about a cartel that the Mexican government estimated was worth $50 billion total. That's more than the GDP of countries like Jordan or Uruguay. No cap.
Damn.
But here's where it gets crazy. Instead of living like a typical drug lord, El Mencho was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. He knew that DEA agent Kyle Morey wasn't lying when he said, "It's very difficult to drive a Lamborghini or Ferrari when you live in the mountains being chased." The man understood that survival meant sacrifice, while others...
Do you know how much discipline that takes to have all that money and be living how he was living? That's crazy.
Kingpins were buying yachts and throwing parties. El Mencho was investing in infrastructure. El Mencho building networks and creating legitimate business fronts that would make his money untouchable. This is important because while other cartels were getting taken down left and right, El Mencho was building an empire that generated over $8 billion yearly just from cocaine, plus another $4.6 billion from methamphetamine.
Damn.
Gang was making more money than most Fortune 500 companies, but you'd never know it from looking at how he lived day to day. Now, to really understand this lifestyle, let me break down what this man actually owned versus how he actually lived. The contrast is absolutely wild, and it shows a level of self-control that most people with that kind of money could never maintain. According to Univision and DEA seizures between 2015 and 2019, El Mencho had lost luxurious cabins built on a lagoon on Mexico's Pacific coast, more than 100 Japanese restaurants, shopping malls, newspapers, real estate, a tequila brand that tried to export to Europe, gold bars used to launder money, and even a ranch where there were exotic animals, including a Bengal tiger and endangered birds. But that's not even the crazy part. Let's talk about the Hotelito Desconocido, the Little Unknown Hotel. This was a 5-star eco-resort with 24 thatched roof bungalows in a UNESCO bird paradise. Sandra Bullock, Julia Roberts, and Blake Lively had all stayed there. In August 2015, the Mexican government seized it after American officials declared it a cartel front. Imagine that. Hollywood A-listers were unknowingly vacationing at a drug lord's resort, probably posting Instagram photos from a property that was being used to launder drug money. The irony is insane. According to sources, his ranches were something else entirely. The Rancho El Palmar was the most luxurious one, spanning between 20 and 50 hectares with kiosks, residences, parking for several vehicles, stables, and swimming pools. This wasn't just a house. This was a compound that could house an army. Then there was Rancho.
Now, shit, you know where all that money coming from? All that money is coming from the United States of America, man. Where we love to get high. All that money, they shipping all that here. So imagine this, he's making billions of dollars a year, tax-free from the United States. Maybe sending it to other countries, but I know we got to be one of his biggest customers.
Rancho La Esperanza in Tonalá, owned by his father-in-law, José Luis Gutiérrez Valencia, known as Don Chelo. This was one of the most valuable properties the Attorney General's office ever secured. And it showed how El Mencho used family connections to spread his assets around and make them harder to trace. Here's where it gets real. At Rancho La Esperanza, they found a Bengal tiger, a Harris hawk, a yellow-breasted toucan, 2 other buteos called crested caracaras, and 3 green macaws. This man was collecting exotic animals like Pokemon cards for real. But these weren't just pets. They were status symbols that he kept private, away from public view. The Bengal tiger alone probably cost more than most people make in a lifetime and required special permits, veterinary care, and facilities.
The restaurant bathroom conversation that led to me tripling my...
El Mencho wasn't showing it off on social media or bringing guests to see it. He was keeping these incredible assets completely secret, which shows the level of discipline this man had. Fast forward to the weapons they found. 6 9mm pistols, 2 of them gold-plated. One had the image of San Judas Tadeo. Another had precious stones embedded with a skull and Ferrari logo. These weren't just weapons. They were works of art that probably cost more than luxury cars. They also seized 2 rocket launchers, including one identical to the model the CJNG used in 2015 to shoot down a military helicopter. That's some next-level gangsta shit right there. Having weapons that can take down aircraft while living in mountain hideouts where aircraft would be your biggest threat. But here's what's really wild. While he owned all this luxury, El Mencho was also building legitimate business empires. Over 100 Japanese restaurants across Mexico, all operating as normal businesses while secretly moving money for the cartel. Customers were eating sushi and paying for meals, never knowing they were contributing to a billion-dollar drug operation. The shopping malls he owned were full of regular families doing their weekend shopping, completely unaware that their rent payments were going to one of the most wanted men in the world. The newspapers he controlled were reporting on cartel violence while being owned by a cartel leader. The level of irony is off the charts.
Hey, man, let me tell you something, bro. When you start controlling media, you got money, man. You know, you start controlling what people consume, the information that people consume, man, you got money. That's one of the biggest flexes, man. He owning a newspaper.
But here's the plot twist that'll blow your mind. Despite owning all this luxury, El Mencho lived nothing like the typical billionaire drug lord. While he owned gold bars for money laundering, luxury cabins on lagoons, and over 100 Japanese restaurants as fronts, this man chose to live in the mountains like a rancher who was constantly on the run. According to DEA agent Kyle Morey, who spent years hunting him, he hides in mountainous areas in Jalisco, Michoacan, and Colima. We believe he is no longer in the cities. This wasn't just about staying low-key. This was a complete lifestyle philosophy that went against everything we thought we knew about drug lord behavior. Let me break down the difference between El Mencho and El Chapo for you, because it shows two completely different approaches to having unlimited money. Agent Mori explained it perfectly. You have heard stories of El Chapo entering a restaurant, taking away all the cell phones of those dining, paying everyone's bills, and disappearing in Culiacan. El Mencho won't do that. He doesn't mind living in the mountains like a rancher.
Yeah.
That complicates his capture. Where was El Chapo captured? Always in cities.
In the city.
Think about that for a second. El Chapo,
city.
with all his money and power, couldn't resist the temptation to live in cities, to show off, to make grand gestures that fed his ego. But El Mencho had the same resources.
I don't think it was just to show off. I think that, man, when you got all that money, man, it's kind of hard, man, to go live up in the mountain, man, in little shacks, man, and dirt floors, man. When you making billions of dollars a year, man, how you go sit up in a little twin-size bed and go to sleep at night? And on second thought, man, you got to understand, you making all this money, but you got people hunting you. You got the United States, man, you got your government. I know he had to be paying some government officials, but I mean, at the end of the day, that can't be no life, man. You know?
And chose to sleep in mountain caves and rural compounds, eating simple meals and wearing basic clothes. So while El Mencho owned properties in towns of Villa Purificacion, in Jalisco, located in the delegations La Eca, Lo Arado, and Villa Vieja, he wasn't living it up in penthouses or throwing parties. These were narco ranches and rural properties used for relaxing and collecting exotic animals, luxury cars, jewelry, and other rare items. But they served as shelters and strategic hideouts, not party spots. The psychological discipline this required is incredible. Imagine having access to the finest restaurants in the world, but choosing to eat beans and rice in a mountain cabin. Having enough money to buy any car ever made, but driving beat-up trucks through rural terrain. Owning luxury resorts, but sleeping on basic beds in hidden compounds. The man had military discipline that other drug lords completely lacked. According to intelligence reports, another factor favoring the drug trafficker is that he does not use drugs. He's in good health and excellent physical condition due to his military discipline. While other kingpins were getting high on their own supply, partying with their wealth, El Mencho was staying sharp, focused, and physically fit. This is crucial because drug lords who use their own products make terrible decisions.
Well, I heard on another report, this guy did one, but I heard on another report, they told me that he had diabetes. You know what I mean? And he had to get his blood filtered ever so often. I mean, that's what they said. We'll never find out how they exactly called him. But man, I heard one person say that he had to get medical attention, and he had to people kept coming in to do his blood transfusion. So
they get paranoid, they get sloppy, they start trusting the wrong people. But El Mencho treated his body like a temple and his mind like a weapon, which gave him advantages that money alone couldn't buy. His security setup was on another level too. Authorities suspected his inner circle was made up of mercenaries with former military training, not just street thugs with guns, but professional soldiers who understood tactics, strategy, and discipline. His second security circle was much larger and served as a rear guard, creating multiple layers of protection. He usually traveled across mountains and rural terrains because it provided multiple escape routes if security forces tried to encircle him. While other drug lords were getting trapped in cities with limited exit strategies, El Mencho always had options: mountains, forests, rural roads, terrain that favored someone who knew how to live rough and move fast. But the story doesn't end there. Because despite all this careful planning and incredible self-discipline, the lifestyle he chose to live ultimately led to his downfall.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build
The very isolation that protected him for so long also made him vulnerable in ways he probably never anticipated. On February 22nd, 2026, in Tapalpa, Jalisco, El Mencho's careful game of hide and seek finally came to an end. But the way they caught him shows just how different his lifestyle really was from other drug lords, and how even the smartest strategies can have fatal flaws.
Yeah, you got to come up for
The
air
investigation
sometime.
revealed that military investigators identified and began following a trusted associate of one of El Mencho's romantic partners.
Look at that.
This shows that even living in isolation,
For
the
some
man still
punani.
had human needs and emotional connections
Boy,
that created
let me tell
vulnerabilities.
you, let me tell
This
you, let me
individual
tell you,
escorted the woman to
let me tell
Tapalpa
you,
on
man,
Friday for a
that
meeting
don't
with
matter where you at and what you do, man, you will get caught up behind a woman, man. You will get caught up behind wanting to get some punani, man. I'm telling you, man.
the drug
That's
lord.
crazy.
The woman left after spending the night with El Mencho, but by then, it was too late. The military had tracked her movements, identified the location, and were closing in. It's almost poetic that a man who avoided capture for decades by avoiding human contact was finally caught because he couldn't completely
Want some
cut
of that
himself
box?
off from human relationships.
Want some of that
When the final
box?
confrontation went down, Oseguera Cervantes attempted to take cover in a wooded area dotted with cabins on the outskirts of Tapalpa. Even in his final moments, he was in the mountains, in rural terrain, living exactly the way he had chosen for years.
But they got the
He
jump
died
on him now.
as he lived, in the wilderness, away from cities, true to his survival philosophy until the very end. But let's talk about what the authorities had been seizing throughout his reign, because the scope of his wealth was absolutely insane.
Damn.
Beyond the exotic animals and gold-plated weapons, they found shopping malls where regular families shopped for groceries, newspapers that regular people read for local news, and real estate companies that helped regular people buy homes.
Damn.
The tequila brand that was trying to export to Europe shows how sophisticated his money laundering operations were.
Washing that money, man.
This wasn't just about moving cash. This was about building legitimate international businesses that could
Legacy.
generate clean money for decades. Imagine
Yep, for the
walking into a
family.
liquor store in Paris and buying a bottle of tequila, not knowing you were contributing to a Mexican cartel's profits. The Japanese restaurants alone, over 100 of them, were being used as fronts across Mexico. Think about the logistics of that operation. Each restaurant needed staff, suppliers, permits, health inspections, tax filings.
he didn't do that by
Each one
himself.
was a fully functioning business that
This man had
served
a-
real customers real
system.
food while secretly moving millions of dollars in drug money. Imagine being a sushi chef working at one of these places, making California rolls and tempura, completely unaware that your paycheck was coming from one of the most
Looked like to me, man, the man was a businessman. Looked like, man, the man was a businessman. Hands down, man. Looked like the drug business was just one of his most profitable businesses. Man, but he had all kind of business, real estate, restaurants, man, the dude had everything, man. So I mean they trying to say that he had to be intelligent. He was a businessman. He wasn't just selling drugs, he was a businessman.
dangerous
They
men
try
in
to
the
tie
world.
everything into
The level of
drugs, but the man was a
compartmentalization
businessman.
required to run this operation is mind-blowing. In court
Yep.
proceedings and DEA reports, they documented armored vehicles that could withstand military-grade weapons, fleets of SUVs equipped with communication systems and escape routes planned down to the minute, and vehicles specifically designed for mountain terrain that could navigate roads most people didn't even know existed. While he didn't have the Lamborghinis and Ferraris that other drug lords flaunted on social media, his vehicle collection was built for survival, not showing off. These were machines designed for one purpose, keeping him alive and free. Every
get
vehicle
away.
was chosen for its ability to navigate specific terrain, carry specific equipment, or blend in with specific environments. The gold bars they found weren't just wealth storage. They were portable assets that could be moved quickly and converted to cash in any country. While other drug lords kept their money in banks that could be frozen or seized, El Mencho kept his wealth in forms that could disappear as quickly as he could.
He started
Meanwhile,
buying
the
assets.
CJNG continued operating even after his
Yeah.
death, showing just how
Cash
well
money ain't worth
organized his
nothing.
empire was. The cartel he built was generating billions annually and had operations worldwide. But El Mencho himself chose to live like he was constantly on the run, because he was. The organization was bigger than any one person, which was probably part of his strategy from the beginning. This whole story changed how we think about drug lord lifestyles forever, and it reveals something profound about human nature, power, and the price of staying on top in the most dangerous game in the world. El Mencho's legacy isn't just about the money he made or the empire he built. It's about proving that sometimes the smartest move is to live below your means, even when you're worth more than most celebrities. But it's also about showing the psychological cost of that choice and what it means to have everything but enjoy nothing.
Man, sometimes, man, all that is not even worth it, man. You got all that, and you got to constantly, like I say, be looking over your shoulders, man, living in the wilderness, man. Man, you making billions of dollars a year, and man, you got to live like that. I mean, what's this about? What is about? I mean, you're sacrificing for the family, but I mean, you can't even enjoy it with the family, and then look like they done took everything away, you know.
Nothing. Think about the mental strength required to own a 5-star resort where Hollywood stars vacation but never stay there yourself. To have exotic animals worth millions, but only see them during brief, secretive visits. To control newspapers and shopping malls, but never be able to walk through them openly. That's a level of self-denial that most people couldn't maintain for a week, let alone decades. The law enforcement community learned that flashy doesn't always mean powerful, and that their traditional methods of tracking drug lords through their spending habits were completely useless against someone like El Mencho. While they were monitoring luxury car dealerships and high-end real estate transactions, he was building a $50 billion empire from mountain hideouts, using legitimate businesses as fronts.
50 billion.
This forced law enforcement to completely rethink their approach. They had to start looking at legitimate businesses, following paper trails through legal companies, and understanding that the most dangerous criminals might be the ones living like they're broke. The investigation techniques developed to catch El Mencho are probably still being used today to track other sophisticated criminal organizations. For real, think about this. The man owned a resort where Hollywood stars vacationed, had enough exotic animals to start a private zoo, and possessed gold bars worth more than most people's houses. But he chose to sleep in mountain cabins and travel rural terrain. That's some next-level strategic thinking, but it's also a kind of prison that he built for himself.
Yeah.
So we're still wholesale